Hey everyone, welcome to Two Car Pros. My name is Ryan, and today I'm going to show you 10 things to check on your car or truck before a long road trip. So these are really easy things that you could check in your garage before you get in your car and just drive hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of miles. It's really easy to catch something in your garage and have it fixed quickly before a trip, then deal with it while you're on a road trip, which could be potentially dangerous if you're on the side of the road. So I've arranged these in most important and most common things people overlook before a road trip to a little bit less important, but still something to check. This is something you can totally do on your own and make a nice list for either a mechanic or somebody who's mechanically inclined, or for yourself to fix before you go on a long road trip and leave yourself potentially stranded. With all that out of the way, let's jump in. So the very first thing we're going to check is engine oil. If you don't do anything else on this list, this is the most important one because, well, engines are expensive. So we're going to locate our dipstick here and remove it. Give that a nice clean off. And then we're going to insert the dipstick all the way down into the tube and come back out. We should get a nice accurate reading. So I know it's a little tricky to see on camera, but the level is right about there at the end of the cross hatchings. All dipsticks will have some sort of indicator that says like empty or full or add 1 quart or these 2 dots. And you want it somewhere between these 2 dots, preferably closer to the top dot, because that gives you a little more leeway in case your engine's burning just a little bit of oil, which isn't a huge deal if it's teeny tiny bit, but if it's quarts and quarts a month, then you have a very serious problem. But as you can see, this oil is very full. It is the absolute maximum it can be. And then I like to put the oil between my fingers like this while I'm wearing gloves and look at the oil condition. What color is it? As you can see, this oil is very clear and nice and new. Even when I wiped it on a towel, you can see that it's very clear. If this oil is dark and dirty or burnt or anything, it's time for an oil change before you go out on a big long road trip. Your oil is your lifeblood of your engine, and if it's not happy, your engine's not going to be happy, potentially leaving you on the side of the road with a really expensive bill. And of course, replace your dipstick. Next, let's pay attention to the tires. Look all around every surface of every tire. Do this for all 4 wheels. Look inside of the tread. Is there any weird like cracking marks? Look on the sidewalls. Make sure there's no cord exposed. If there's any cord exposed, it looks like this. Go ahead and replace that tire at minimum and all 4 at best practice. Make sure your tires are in good condition. A blowout is the #1 reason people have problems on road trips. These look pretty good. They're a little bit old, but not too bad. I would trust them for a relatively short road trip, although if I was going all around the country or something, I would consider getting new ones. Look inside of the tread. Get really in there. Look all around the circumference of the tire and every single tire. Don't just do it for the fronts or the backs. Make sure there's no cord exposed. Make sure there's no big cracks or problems. Look for any kind of like nails or staples or road debris that's been stuck into your tire, because you need to get that resolved before you go on a trip. The next thing we're going to worry about is tire pressure. Having your tires too low can eat up efficiency and cause weird wear patterns and eventually a blowout. Having them too high can cause weird wear patterns and cause a blowout eventually. So go ahead and check these. And the rated PSI is 50. And we can see we're at about 50 right now. So these tires are right on the money. If they're low, fill them up. If they're high, let some out. And if you need compressed air, most gas stations have it for about $1, or you can just order a cheap air compressor off of Amazon, and the link will be located down below in the description. And with all of our maintenance items for tires, do them for all 4 tires and the spare if you have one. The next thing I would check is your air filter. So on this truck, it's really easy. You just pull it out like this. Your air filter is going to be located somewhere in your engine bay. It's a big box with a filter element in it. And look at it. Is it decently clean like this one? It's a teensy bit dirty right there, but not bad at all. You can just look at the fins and see that this one is basically new and very good. You wouldn't believe how many people's air filters they take apart, and it is just caked with dirt, which can totally hamper efficiency and ruin your day. But this air filter is looking nice, and it's going to keep the engine breathing the way it wants to. Now let's look at our windshield wipers. Rain can come out of nowhere and so thick you can't see, and it's important that your windshield wipers work effectively. So just take a look at them. Does the rubber look nice and good like this one does, or is it really cracky and gross and doesn't work efficiently? You can even test it out with a hose. Just spray your windshield and try to use the wipers. Do they work? If not, it might be a time for a replacement or an adjustment, and I did a whole video on how to adjust this so it works properly, and I'll leave that down below in the description. But these windshield wipers look just fine, so they're ready to go. And seriously, replacing these is ridiculously easy. You just push down on the J-hook clip, bring it towards you, and that's how you take them off. And then the reverse is you just stick it in the J-hook, and then you're good to go. That's literally how easy it is to replace J-hook windshield wipers, and 9 out of 10 vehicles have these, so chances are yours look and function just like this. The next really important thing we need to make sure works on our vehicle is our lights. All the exterior lights on your vehicle need to work in order to be safe and avoid any kind of accident or citation or anything like that. So let's just set a camera up and check it. If you don't have a camera, try using your smartphone or grab a friend. So the very first light we're gonna check is brakes. Brakes work. Now we're gonna try a blinker. That works. Another blinker. That works great. Hazard lights. Those work. Now, turn the headlights on. Make sure the rear lights come on, and they do. And we can try the blinker again. Blinker again. Hazards. And brakes. All those work fantastically. Now we can try the reversing lights. Those work as well, so the rear of the vehicle's lights work perfectly. Now come to the front of your vehicle and do the exact same thing. Left blinker. Right blinker, hazards, running lights, headlights, high beams, low beams, high beams, low beams. Kind of hard to see on camera, but they do work. And then I'm also going to check the fog lights, making sure those work if you have them equipped. Not every car has fog lights, that's okay. And then try the blinker with the headlights on, left one, right one. All right. All of the lights on this truck work perfectly. If one of your lights is out, it is time to replace it, and I have plenty of guides on that. If you need any help, please go to our website, twocarpros.com, and someone will be around shortly to help you. The next thing we're going to check is the coolant level. Luckily on this truck, it's pretty easy to see where the level is. There'll be a cool fill line, and it's right between the two lines there, as you can see. If you don't have the luxury of a clear bottle like this one, sometimes they're built into the top of the radiator, and it'll just have an overflow tank instead of an actual feed tank like this one is. What you're going to have to do with the engine off and cool so it's not under pressure is remove the radiator cap or the coolant cap and look inside of there and see what kind of condition your coolant is in and what level it is at. But this one is absolutely primo and is ready to rock and roll. Also, if your radiator cap looks gross and corroded, or sometimes they're rusted because sometimes they're made of metal, I would replace this. This is like a $5 part, and it actually, your coolant cap regulates pressure inside your cooling system and raises the boiling point, which your coolant system needs to operate at all. So this part is super important and gets overlooked a lot. So if this is old and craggly and gross, just go ahead and replace them. They're like $5. The next thing we're going to do is inspect our cooling hoses. This is our upper radiator hose that goes from our engine to our radiator. There's a lower one as well, and usually there is a heater core one right here. And what you want to do is just look at them, inspect them, see if there's any cracks. Does it look kind of dodgy? I also like to squeeze them like this, and it should bend fairly well, and you shouldn't feel like the rubber cracking. Like when you squeeze an old hose when it's about to let go, which could be catastrophic, it kind of cracks and creaks and it'll look really old. This is brand new, so it's completely fine. You can just squeeze it all day, it's completely fine. Do that for every single rubber hose you can see, like this one that goes to the heater core, or this one that returns back from the heater core. Things like that are going to be all over your engine, and it's going to vary engine to engine. So just go around and take a look at your rubber hoses. Do they look okay? If not, it might be time to replace them. Another detail of your cooling system that sometimes I run into in my work is that the radiator will be basically totally plugged with mud or dirt or crud, or sometimes there'll be a trash bag just slapped up on there. Road debris just comes up through here and goes whoop and right onto the radiator, or mud and dirt over the years. And it might work fine if you live in a cooler climate, but if you go somewhere hotter, well, the radiator's not going to work as efficiently and it will overheat. So if your radiator is very dirty and dusty, just grab a garden hose and spray it down. Don't, hold it really close and damage the fins or anything, but, from a reasonable distance, and just hose it down and make sure it's nice and clean. Also, look through this cavity. Sometimes cars have their radiator only in this cavity. This is a big old truck, so it needs this giant cooling surface, but some cars can get away with just having this lower one. So look up in there and make sure there's not just a trash bag preventing flow into your radiator. And it kind of works where you live, but it might have a problem if you're crossing the desert or something like that. So make sure your radiator is nice and clean and there's no obstructions. Next, let's look at our battery. Are the battery terminals corroded? Nope, on this one it's perfectly fine. There's absolutely no corrosion on these terminals. If there is, it's time to take these apart and clean them and put them back on if the battery's okay. Typically, not always, typically if the battery terminals are corroded, the battery is corroding and it's time for a replacement. A lot of the times batteries have a date on them, and I would never run a battery more than 3 years. 4 years is really pushing it. So in my experience, if your battery's over 3 years, regardless of performance, I would just go ahead and replace it. But this battery is brand new. It is less than a couple of months old and there's no corrosion on it, so this battery's ready to go. Batteries don't work as efficiently in the cold as they do in the warm. So say you live somewhere that's a little bit warmer and the battery seems okay, but once you go somewhere cold, it might not function. So it's important to have a nice battery that works great. I always like to replace batteries maybe a little bit earlier than usual, but in my experience, when you go somewhere cold, you really want to rely on a good battery. Another thing to check on your battery is how tight your battery cables are. So with gloved hands, grab the battery terminal cable and see if you can move it. I've noticed on a lot of cars that come in that this is just loose and someone forgot to tighten it. So do it for both and make sure, oh, see, this one's a little bit loose. I'm going to go ahead and tighten that. That's a good catch right there. So this one right here is a little bit loose, but let's see the terminal on the battery. That one's fine, but that nut right there needs to be tightened because this can move a little bit. And when you're tightening anything on the positive side, make sure you don't accidentally touch the body with whatever implement you're using. I'm using a 10mm wrench here, and I'm just going to snug that down because this was definitely loose. And there we go. That could have potentially caused a problem, but now it is nice and tight and everything on the battery is nice and tight like it wants to be. The next thing we're going to do is grab a flashlight and come to the front of the engine and inspect our serpentine belt. Yes, I know that sensor is unplugged. It's for instructional purposes only. I will plug it back in when I'm done explaining. So inspect your serpentine belt on the front and the back side. So on the rib side, we can see that there's no cracks and it looks really good. This belt's actually brand new, but it's a really good idea to check this. Without this belt, your car or truck is just going to overheat and could potentially cause catastrophic engine failure if you're not paying attention to your temperature gauge. So it's really important that this belt's in good shape and doesn't break on your road trip. So check the back as well as the front, or however you want to look at it. Check both sides of your serpentine belt. On the topic of serpentine belts, I also carry with me a whole brand new one because these can be not super tricky to find, but if it breaks on the side of the road and I have the right tool to change the belt right then and there and get back on my journey, that's gonna be way faster than waiting for a tow truck to take you to somewhere where you can get one. I would definitely keep an extra belt with you. And besides, what if your Napa you're near or wherever parts house you are doesn't have your belt? Now you're waiting for one, which can cause even more delays. So I just always buy one of these and keep it in whatever car I'm driving. So on a little bit older cars, they use hydraulic fluid to operate power steering. That is something we need to talk about. If you have electric power steering, you don't have to worry about this as you have no fluid for that. But on this truck, there's the max line, there's the min line. I'm just shine a flashlight in there so you can see what I'm going on about. So we can see that it is right up to the max line, which is exactly where you want it. Sometimes these are not clear and you have to actually open it up and look inside of it with the engine off to see what's going on. And sometimes they have a little dipstick, so you'll stick the cap in there and it'll have a little dipstick just like an engine oil thing, and you'll be good to go there. Also, look at the condition of it. Is it nice and pink like this fluid is? Great. If not, well, it might be time to do a power steering flush, and I have a link down below in the description to how to do that. The next thing we're going to check is the instrument cluster. Are there any lights on? Nothing on the right side of the dash, but look down here. It does have a check engine light, so that's going to need to be investigated and fixed before we go off tearing across the country. So now let's try the transmission fluid. Now, not all vehicles these days, unfortunately, come equipped with a transmission dipstick, but if yours does, it's a good idea to check it. Just like the oil level, it's essential that the level is at the correct amount and that it is a healthy fluid. It's not all burnt and ruined. So I've let the truck come all the way up to temperature. It's been idling for about 15 minutes or so, and we can take our dipstick out. And this is a good idea to take a look at what the color of the fluid is. A little bit difficult to see on camera, but it's this really nice, brilliant pink color. I'm gonna go ahead, and now that the truck is warm, and you have to do this while the truck is, or car is, idling warm in park. Now we can take that out and see what our level is. So you can see right here, it has a cold mark, but traditionally you just want to know what the hot is doing, and you can see that our hot side is right at the very top. It does not want us to add any more, and we can see the condition of our fluid is this really nice, beautiful pink color. And we can see the color of the fluid is like a pinky red. That is absolutely perfect. You can even do a little smell. Just smell it a little bit. If it smells burnt, then your fluid really needs a change. Or if it's brown, your fluid needs a change. This is absolutely perfect. I would not take a vehicle on a road trip that has burnt transmission fluid, because that burnt transmission fluid might just leave you on the side of the road burnt yourself and wishing you just did a simple transmission service. But this looks awesome, so we can go ahead and put our dipstick back and turn the vehicle back off. Alternatively, if your vehicle does not have a transmission dipstick, crawl underneath it, put it up in the air with jack stands or something, and look at your transmission. Does it look nice and dry like this one does? All the way around? Or does it have a big leak? If your transmission is leaking, you need to get that sorted before you can really go anywhere with it. Don't get mad at me, I'm just the messenger. That's as good as you're gonna get on cars that don't have a transmission dipstick. Some newer cars have a transmission dipstick located up top, on top of the flange surface for the pan, so keep an eye out for that, but those are decently rare. I've mostly seen them either a dipstick up top or no dipstick at all, so just a little advice for you. But again, if it is leaking and you've noticed pink puddles under your car, it is definitely time to get your transmission service. Don't skimp out on that. That is something you should be doing minimum every 100,000 miles, ideally every 60 to 80. So that was 10 things plus one bonus thing to check before you just hop in your car and take off for thousands and thousands of miles. Your car is basically a big machine that requires maintenance, and when you fall behind on that maintenance or overlook something, or maybe something slips your mind, it can really punish you when you go on a very long trip. So these are just things you really should check before you even get in your car and go, ideally about a week before you even intend to embark on this road trip. I have 2 more tips for you before we end the video, and it's take a little tool chest with you with a couple of basic hand tools. You'd be surprised what you can accomplish with those in an emergency. Also, bring some supplies with you. Some extra bottled water and some extra shelf-stable snacks really can make a difference if you're waiting for a tow truck for a long period of time. You don't know how long you might be on the side of the road for, and it's best to be repaired. Some road flares and a flashlight are also a good idea. Thank you so very much for watching. If you found this video helpful or interesting at all, please consider becoming a member down below or subscribing and liking the video. It really helps my channel out. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.